Hello and welcome to Hank Games Without Hank. Today we are, of course, the Swindon Town Swoodly Poopers. I have returned from my book tour, allowing me to again go back to daily updates of your beloved Swindon Town. I have taken your advice to heart, friends. I'm going to try to be a better player. I spent many hours playing this game in the Tiffios van while we were traveling around the country and up to Canada, and hopefully I'm a little bit better. I'm not get our referee's name is Dong Kyun Choi. We are playing in Europe. You should expect me to lose this game, even if I have improved as a player, because we are playing a high-quality European opponent, as you can tell from the beautiful quality of the pitch. So things that I'm going to do differently. By the way, today I'm going to talk about whether democracy is inherently good. Things I'm going to do differently. I'm going to pass back more often to people like One Size Fits All and Ginger Rampage. I'm going to try to have more of a shape. I'm going to sprint up the field on occasion from the corners and then try sending it into the middle, like that, which didn't work. But I am going to try to be a better player and not use the same strategy over and over again, etc. So today's question is democracy inherently good? Is democracy a thing that we should strive for in and of itself? This has been on my mind a lot lately because of Crash Course, the new show that I'm doing. For those of you who don't know, Ball John Green, he's so strong, but he's not strong enough. Ball John Green, that's not necessarily what I would have done with the ball there. I'm doing a new show called Crash Course, and could you put that in the net next time, other John Green, Nate Bennett? This is a great start for the Swoodly Poopers, though, and I'm using the run button less because many of you were mad at me about how often I use the run button. So if you look at world history over the course of the last 15,000 years that we've been gathering ourselves into political groupings. There have not been that many long-lasting successful democracies, but there have been a lot of long-lasting successful empires and other kinds of governments. And one of the questions at the center of all this is whether the key. Thank you for that nice, long, beautiful shot of my old friend Bald John Green and his beautiful mustache. His mustache, the whole reason I refused to upgrade to FIFA 12. The question of whether we should organize ourselves into off of other John Green's head, not our best work. Whether we should organize ourselves into democratic states or not, and whether stability is to be valued over freedom. It turns out to be a really interesting question that's like at the core of a lot of current thinking about lots of different things. And we're seeing this play out right now, specifically in Syria, where there is a repressive, long-standing regime led by this totally unlikable guy, and there are democratic protests going on, and amid these democratic protests, there is that was Bunsen Burner. Who exactly were you passing to? I still like our tactics a little bit better in this game. I feel like we're playing more stronger, but we obviously got to pass it better. And One Size Fits All did a nice offside trap there. So you have a relatively stable government in the form of the current Syrian government that is also just hugely. It's destabilizing for the region because the leadership there is crazy, and it's not good for the citizens of the country to have really poor leadership, etc. And that's all true. On the other hand, if you destabilize that country via revolution, it's not at all. Why did I get a yellow card for getting knocked over? That doesn't seem. Yeah, that's my yellow card? Really? Yeah, strong disagree. I think it was for my previous foul, but I'm still mad about it. And right now in Syria, like a couple days ago, 400 people were slaughtered by the government, and it's basically turned into a bit of a civil war. And it's not at all clear to me that the average Syrian is better off in the midst of this civil war than he or she would have been if the repressive regime had just continued. That becomes a really difficult, complicated question. We're also seeing this in Egypt, where they have had somewhat democratic elections in the wake of the revolution there. But those democratic elections have seen the large plurality of seats go to an organization called the Muslim Brotherhood that frankly does not reflect the values of most of the people who are protesting in Tahrir Square, and in many cases, in many cases, really doesn't. And it's not at all clear yet. I mean, the government is still being run by the military, and it's not really clear where, if anywhere, when, if at any time, things are going to get any better. So, come on, get on goal at least. All right, I'm doing a better job of getting those on goal at least. So, I would argue that the current level, like the current governance in Egypt, is probably better than it was under Mubarak, but their tourism money has gone down, their GDP has gone down. Egypt is in some ways facing, this is a temporary problem, but is facing a recession as a result of all the problems there. And you gotta keep that down, Fahey. You're our captain today. You need to play like it. It's halftime. You got to say that Swindon Town Swoodly Poopers have had the better of the play here at world-class skill level, but we are scoreless. We are scoreless. But I don't think really Mr. Berna has been forced into a single save in a meaningful way. So the question becomes, ultimately the question becomes one of values. I was going to mention a bunch of other examples when democratic reforms weren't necessarily helpful, such as when President Bush pressed, he's a finisher! Ball John Green with an old school Swindon Town Swoodly Poopers goal, finishing like a finisher. Look at that. He just holds him off, and then, because he's a finisher. He always has been. Ball John Green puts that in the back of the net 10 times out of 10, and he's playing like his pre-injury self, and I'm so proud of him. Then a nice tackle from other John Green. All of a sudden, the Swoodly Poopers have come alive. And this is Europe, let me remind you. If we move forward in this tournament, this is huge, huge money to us. Oh, almost with a beautiful goal. So, So when like Hamas, for instance, wins a popular election, that's a legitimate election result. But it's not a good election result. I would argue anyway. I don't think that Hamas. I mean, I understand why people vote for Hamas. They build schools, they build hospitals, they do lots of other things that other folks aren't doing. That when you look at the government isn't really doing a very good job of. Leroy Williamson, no, not even. That was a shot that led to a throw-in, which is never a good sign. I held the RB button, I thought. Anyway. So to me, the question becomes really one of values, because if you value stability, and if that's your central value, like if you value stability and economic growth, then sometimes revolutions can be really problematic, at least in the short run and even in the medium run. But when you're talking about a medium run of 20 or 30 years, that's pretty serious. But on the other hand, if you value, come on, that's a foul. If you value an ideal, like the ideal of freedom, and you think in the very long term, there's no question that democracy is really helpful. It's helpful economically. It leads to people having better and longer and healthier lives. Ball John Green almost with a goal. And it also, I think, leads to, in many ways, a more stable planet, not just in terms of individual polities, but in terms of, our overall ability to get things done together and in conversation with each other. It seems to build stability on that front. And certainly, in the age of democracy, you see less political violence than you saw in say in the 18th century or even the 15th century. You see fewer people die in war than you did back in the day. That reminds me of the importance of substitutions. I will substitute next time there is a change in play. So you're sacrificing temporary stability in hopes that things will improve long term. Now, it'll be really interesting to see what happens in countries like, for instance, Libya, which has a bit of a resource curse, as the saying goes. And there's a kind of, I was meant to pass back. I was trying to do the smart thing and pass the ball back. A lot of times countries with lots of oil actually struggle in terms of having open and honest governance. Not a great pass. I'm getting there, but I've got a long way to go in terms of figuring out how to do those crosses. And having people who are free, and that's because it's that's not a foul, but I will make some substitutions. In terms of having freedom in meaningful ways, Perry, you're going to go ahead and come out of the game. I think you're going to be replaced by French Lana. And Leroy Williamson can't come out. I love him too much, but I will be taking out Mr. S. Hamill. We're going to bring in this guy, and I don't think we have any more. We probably should have more substitutes that are defenders. I'll remember that for next time. All right. So, and it's not at all clear that whatever government emerges from Libya will be a stable democracy. It's also not clear that whatever government emerges from Egypt will be a stable democracy. And it's not at all clear that the horrors that the people of Syria are currently suffering will in any way lead to a better life for Syrians of the future. And that's something that makes me really sad. And I'm also really, really frustrated. Go! Yes, goal! Wow, we win 2-0 against European opposition. Who could believe it? Ball John Green with both of the goals. He's so handsome, and I love his mustache. Oh, great stuff. Maybe it's because you guys have your sponsor on your bottoms that you're not very good at playing soccer. I was particularly alarmed, I have to say, and that both Russia and China vetoed a resolution at the UN Security Council that would censor the Syrian government for their awful, unspeakable crimes against their own people. But solving these issues are not. It's not easy, and it's not simply a matter of rooting for the good guys over the bad guys. You root for the good guys, but as we've seen in Egypt, the story does not end with the fall, and we've seen it in Iraq and all over. The story does not end with the fall of the government. That's really where the story begins. Bunsen burner, yes. So we need to, our responsibility as engaged citizens of the world is to try to continue to pay attention even after CNN stops watching. Unfortunately, our Swedish opposition is forced to sniff their armpits in shame. Ginger Rampage, on the other hand, and Tiny Merrick are celebrating. Congratulations to the boys of Swindon Town for their 2-0 victory over European opposition. We're going to try to stay up in the Premier League this year. We're also going to try to move forward in Europe. I appreciate your support, all your kind words. Tell me what to talk about, and thanks for watching. Best wishes.